with my college football schedule preview point spread prediction videos today. I'll be doing the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. So Rutgers' non-conference schedule is very easy because they play three little teams. North Folk State is an FCS team, so that's 100% sure win for Rutgers. But the other two, Ohio and Miami, Ohio, I wouldn't call them guaranteed wins for Rutgers because those are two of the better group of five teams. And while Rutgers has been better the last 2 years, they've still just been average. And I saw in 2023, Ohio beat Iowa State, who that year was about as good as Rutgers has been the last 2 years. But these are games that I would say are 95% sure wins for Rutgers. So Rutgers has five different conference opponents than they did last year. So last year they played Nebraska, Wisconsin, USC, UCLA, and Michigan State. And this year instead they will play Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Purdue, and Iowa. And that makes the conference schedule much tougher than last year because last year Rutgers avoided all of the three best Big Ten teams, and this year they'll play all of them: Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. And those three games are games that I would give Rutgers no chance of winning. Because there's such a talent difference between those three teams and Rutgers that their second string players would start at Rutgers. And Dan Lanning and Ryan Day and James Franklin, none of them ever lose to teams like Rutgers. And Rutgers also having to play Illinois makes this one of the toughest Big Ten schedules because Illinois is going to be a preseason top 25 team. And Rutgers' second bye week comes at a bad time because it comes before the Ohio State game. And their toughest two in a row is by far going to be the end of the season: Ohio State and Penn State, games that are probably going to be blowout losses for Rutgers. But good news about the new schedule is they get to play Purdue. Purdue, while there are no guaranteed conference wins for Rutgers, I would say they are about as close to a guaranteed win for Rutgers as it gets. About as sure of a win for Rutgers as Ohio and Miami, Ohio will be. And it is good that Rutgers gets to play Maryland again because that is a very likely win for Rutgers. And it's good that even though Rutgers does have to play two road games in a row, that one of them is at Purdue, because Illinois on the road is going to be a very hard game for Rutgers to win. But I would still consider it to be a very winnable game for Rutgers. And Rutgers at first bye week, I think, comes at a perfect time in between two road games against Minnesota and Washington, teams that are probably going to be similar to Rutgers. I think Minnesota is a little better than Washington is. Minnesota, I think, could possibly be a borderline top 25 team this season. The tough part about playing Minnesota this year is going to be their defense because they return a lot from a top 10 defense in the country last year. But good news in this one for Rutgers is Minnesota probably isn't going to be very dangerous offensively because they were not very good offensively last year, and they lose Max Brosmer at quarterback, who had a good year last year, and they lose Daniel Jackson at wide receiver, who was a really good receiver, and they've got to rebuild their offensive line. So outside of running back Darius Taylor, Minnesota is not very dangerous offensively, most likely. And at Rutgers, even though they do lose a Kyle Monangai at running back, who was a really good running back, and the strength of their offense these past uh, 2 seasons. I watched Rutgers play in the bowl game without him, and they showed a lot of hope for this coming season offensively when they scored 41 points against Kansas State. And Washington surprisingly had a pretty good defense last year, but their offense took a big step back, and they only returned 52% of their production, which is 19% less than Rutgers does. But Washington did have a top 15 transfer portal group, and they do return Jonah Coleman at running back, one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. But Rutgers getting Iowa uh, won't really make much of a difference in how tough the schedule is, because Iowa is similar, I think, to those 5 teams that I named that they played last year. So now for the point spread prediction. Games in the green are games where I think Rutgers will be favored to win by a blowout, 20 or more points, and there's one of those at Norfolk State. Games in the blue are games where I think they'll be favored to win by double digits, 10 to 19 points, and there's 4 of those: Ohio, Miami, Ohio, Purdue, and Maryland. Games in the pink are games where I think they'll be favored to win by about a field goal, 1 to 5 points, and there's one of those in Iowa. Games in the gray are games where I think Rutgers will be about a field goal underdog, and there's 2 of those, Minnesota and Washington. Games in the orange are games where I think Rutgers will be a double-digit underdog, 10 to 19 points, and there's 3 of those, Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. And games in the yellow are games where I think Rutgers will be about a touchdown underdog, 6 to 9 points, and there's one of those, Illinois. So Ohio and Miami, Ohio. I think Rutgers will be favored in both of those by around 17 points, and I think they'll be favored by about 10 points against Purdue, and about 10 points against Maryland. And Iowa would be a great game if it was on the road, but because it's a home game, I think Rutgers will be, I'll say, a 3-point favorite over Iowa. And Minnesota and Washington would be pink games at home, but on the road, I'll say Minnesota will be favored by 3 over Rutgers, and Washington will probably just be favored by like a point against Rutgers. And Oregon and Penn State, I think will be favored by like 17 points against Rutgers. And Ohio State, it wouldn't be surprising if that was a red game, which would mean Rutgers would be a blowout underdog. The spread in that one will probably be like 19 points. So that will be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.